Literature Review: Payola and Radio by Wilbur Morris. The purpose of this is to give an in-depth look at how radio stations function in regards to music selection, advertisements, and marketing. This is something that is rarely mentioned or discussed. Consumers and fans don't have enough insight on how radio stations operate. Knowledge of the process of how music is chosen and why it's chosen allows people to know that the business side plays a huge part in what they're listening to. The audience should know that in the music business and radio, there is more emphasis on the business than the music part. Radio programmers and record label executives in the promotions department both play a huge part in why certain records are being played on radio. And knowing the reasoning behind why certain records are in heavier rotation on stations nationwide is a science that involves advertisements, marketing, and money. In an age where there's more coverage on pirating music and the decline of record sales, there aren't enough discussions on radio and why stations choose certain songs, along with the process behind how programmers select their station's playlists. Payola is defined in the Webster's Dictionary as undercover or indirect payment as to a disc jockey for a commercial favor, as for promoting a particular recording. The history of this dates way back to the 1960s, when a famous disc jockey by the name of Alan Freed was the first person convicted of this act. Section 317 of the Communications Act requires broadcasters to disclose to their listeners or viewers if matter has been aired in exchange for money, services, or other valuable consideration. Requires that when anyone provides or promises to provide money, services, or other consideration to someone to include program matter in a broadcast, that fact must be disclosed in advance of the broadcast, ultimately to the station over which the matter is to be aired. Punishable by a fine of no more than $10,000 or imprisonment for not more than 1 year, or both. As of recently, in 2005, 3 major labels were indicted and settled out of court for pay-for-play practices. Around 85% of radio music comes from major labels now. The new angle I propose with this project is to shed light on how not only is payola still active in today's society, but also how consumers are victims to this crime because they are being programmed to listen and like certain music. In 2012, instead of hand-to-hand exchanges, there's a favor for a favor system set up, whereas if a DJ plays an artist's record, the artist may perform at the DJ's club for free. It seems now record labels, program directors, and disc jockeys have found a loophole in the system whereas they can continue the same practices without getting caught. Payola not only affects the listeners and consumers, but also takes a toll on independent artists that are unable to be heard. With this new angle, insight will be given to consumers and fans on how a radio station operates in regards to how and why certain music is chosen and how it affects the listeners and the recording industry. This story will be easy to understand because the basis of it is about music and radio, which is something everyone listens to, opposed to a subject that is catered to a certain demographic or audience, such as politics, religion, or science. With so many radio stations nowadays owned by conglomerates, there's less opportunity for the local deal making that was so prevalent in payola's heyday. That's not to say that the market manipulation is a thing of the past. A quote by Robin Cartwright sheds light on how there's a new angle and approach to what is considered payola. Given that most major labels are owned by the same media conglomerates that own radio stations, synergy type of relationships are likely to be popular, with, say, Clear Channel promoted concerts featured on Clear Channel owned stations. He ended off by saying, "I'm sure that the FCC will have to change the rules as media ownership evolves."